you. How's not?
I miss it terribly.
Hi,
But
we are live
they will.
now.
Okay,
Since you guys are
perfect. Well,
listening to
happy
me saying,
Thursday.
like we're going live.
Are we?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Cool. So today we are going to talk about, I think, actually redeeming miles for once, because lately we've had just stories with Sean M and other things, so there may be some stories here as well. But so we're joined by Matthew Clint from Live and Let's Fly, who is awesome and who I've taken many fun trips with. It might be time for another one eventually, once that's, once the world goes back to whatever. And then
Normal, yes.
And then we're also joined by Jordan, who's awesome and who works with us at Points Pros. So he has redeemed, I don't know how many hundreds of millions or billions maybe of miles.
Yeah, probably billions at this point.
Redeemed a lot of miles. So hopefully we can, and he's in, Matthew, you're in LA.
Correct.
And Jordan, you're in Spain, right? We're in Spain,
yeah.
Barcelona.
Barcelona, where you're finally allowed to leave your apartment.
Yeah, which is weird. Like, I don't know. We were in quarantine for 7 weeks, and then out of nowhere, it's like, okay, yeah, you can get a haircut on Monday. And that was like the first thing they gave us back, or they let us do. It was like haircuts, but I guess the numbers are low enough where you don't have to worry about it.
I think it's worth pointing out that the quarantine experience in Spain is vastly different than the quarantine experience in the US.
Yeah, no, it was a legit, you have to stay home or you will be fined quarantine here. Like police roaming the street and looking for people.
Also, Matthew, I'm just noticing this. Are you wearing the Emirates self-hydrating pajamas?
I am. I was looking for the Cathay Tang ones, but these were more readily accessible.
I mean, and they're self-hydrating. What more could you want? I have to drink water. You just wear the pajamas, and your, hydration is taken care of. And we should also mention, thank you, Matthew, for joining us, that you just had your second baby a few days ago. So that is the fact that you're awake is impressive.
The fact that I get any sleep is even more impressive.
Good on your wife that you're getting some sleep. That is amazing. So I cannot imagine. That's so should we get right into? Well, Tiffany, sorry, you. I'm just reading these comments. I'm just in shock that Danielle F is saying, "I'm glad we're talking about this because I've still never redeemed yet," which is hysterical considering how long I've been reading OMAP. Wow.
Right?
Danielle.
Yeah. I have a lot of questions, but.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited, and I think it'll be fun. I love John's comment. Like, I hope we actually talk about miles and points today. I mean, our approach with these has been just to be sort of sociable and fun and let people ask whatever questions. And ironically, people have had very few miles and points questions. But as we were talking about it last week, I was like, we should have, our other people on who book a lot of awards and know a lot about miles and points and actually talk about that, because it's sort of been a while since we've talked about using miles.
Is that why I'm on?
For travel.
I thought we were going to talk about why Laura and Aladdin didn't work out.
Who?
Laura and Aladdin, your two favorites, Ben.
Wait, what? Wait.
Laura, Aladdin.
Oh,
Beyonce.
Of course. Sorry, how could I?
Introduce me to that
show. Oh my God, are you up to date?
Since.
Are you up to date on are you up to the latest season?
I'm not. No, I just came on to talk miles and points.
I mean, if you are up in the middle of the night or whatever, if you're not able to sleep, get back into 90 Day Fiancé. This past season has been incredible. From David in the Ukraine. I mean, you need to watch it. It's highly, highly, highly recommended. So,
okay.
So nothing. I don't know if any. He was from Morocco, right? I don't think that will beat the belly dance we had in that private restaurant in where we were basically the only ones at the Hyatt Regency Casablanca, but that's for a different time. So that's sorry. Anyway.
Okay, so I'm going to pose a general conversation. So one of the things that I think that we've talked about casually but haven't really gotten into is this idea that as people are starting to look at booking travel for future, whether that is the future of June or the future of next April, I think we're all sort of in agreement that people should consider using miles rather than using cash.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I don't know, Matthew, how many tickets did you end up having to cancel for people for your award expert clients and stuff? Was it like a huge volume of chaos or?
It was. It actually, looking back, it went fairly smoothly, and it's been just a gradual decline since then. So it's very quiet this week. But yeah, I mean, once this all started late March, I mean, that's all we were doing, and maybe it's just our style, right? We ask nice, we beg if we have to, but I didn't run into the refund issues even with United. Redeposits, we do revenue tickets as well. It's all in all, I'm happy to tear into airlines who have bad rules, illegal rules on the blog, but my own personal experience has been airlines around the world have been fairly good about this.
You should go after KLM, if anything. I think they are the worst right now as far as refunds. I had someone whose chargeback was declined or denied, I don't know what the word is for that, for a KLM revenue ticket when they sold a flight that they sold them a ticket for a flight that had already been canceled.
Yeah.
And they offered them a voucher, and they're refusing to give them a refund. And then Chase and Visa denied the chargeback because there was something in the Visa COVID rules where if the chargeback is related to COVID, it's just not, it's like automatically voided or something. Even though
giving up. That's
terrible. Like DOT, the EU regulators, everyone says like you're required by law to, do a refund. But anyway.
That's the problem, right? I mean, the law is clear. The EU's affirmed it. The DOT's affirmed it in the US. And, United's like, and KLM is like, Lufthansa's like, I won't put up my middle finger. No Lufthansa's reaction.
It's screwing people up. I'm sorry, maybe I shouldn't say that.
No, it's fine. I pre-select the light profanity when I set up the live streams. We just assume that there's going to be some.
It's possible I'm completely making this up, but I feel like I read a couple days ago that credit card chargebacks, I don't remember if this is with a specific process or something, but that they've increased for travel-related purchases from 0.5% to 20%. So again, I'll have to double check that, but that is surprising.
I would believe that because my own experience is that people, not like all people, but there's like some percent of people who feel like rather than dealing with the merchant, it's just so much easier. You're right there on your credit card website and just hit the button of like chargeback. They've made it so easy from a consumer protection standpoint that it's, I don't know, it's a little abused. But I can also see, especially if these situations where like you booked through an OTA or in places where like you don't really understand how you booked, right? Like we generally would book directly through the airlines, but not everybody does that. And they thought they were booking through this, and the agency, booked it, but it doesn't show up as like the agency name. It shows up as something else, or what is the code share situation? People are like, I don't know what this was, so I just did a chargeback. Why not?
It's also like basically the story of my dad's life. He gets his printed paper.
Okay, so I wasn't going to say that. I wasn't going to be like, the problem is that there are 70-year-olds in Florida,
and then there's something
and they both make purchases and vote. So.
I mean, fortunately, he can't vote, but the rest of it,
Does he go through line by line with a ruler and a pen like my father?
Oh, and a magnifying glass that's about that big, where he's like, staring it down, and then he's like, no, this is, and he calls it a fraudulent charge. Someone must have stolen my credit card. And then, like, of course, it's something actually that is, I'm, slightly trying to figure out what the letters might stand for in the merchant. I'm like, wait, didn't you make a purchase from this? He's like, oh. And it's like, okay, I'll call them back and tell them it wasn't. But at this point, they've issued him a new card. I think it's happened like twice in the past few months. And I'm just like,
right. They've charged the merchant, for the purchase and like a $15 fee. It's amazing. So Jordan, going back to your KLM example, I think that's a really good example to give. Like, obviously, it's terrible to sell a ticket on a flight that's already been canceled. Like, why is that even a thing you can do? But instead, if someone had booked with like Flying Blue Miles, how are those changes going, or those cancellations?
Yeah, those are surprisingly much better. They've had a relatively generous refund policy. I think it goes through something like mid-July right now. But even like the few days before COVID was really kind of spiraling, or the situation was spiraling out of control. Like if you just called Flying Blue and said, "Oh yeah, I'm uncomfortable traveling," or COVID, they just would either cancel and refund it, or they're letting you change it, and they'll basically rebook you on any, or this has been my experience, like any Air France KLM flight without charging the difference in miles or anything. It's just processed as an even exchange if you want to change dates, which is really good. Yeah, sorry, what was your original question? Using miles versus
I just
cash?
wanted to talk. Yeah, I think we should highlight some of that, like using miles versus paying for tickets, or like we talk about generally using miles for aspirational travel or like getting outsized value, but there is a certain amount right now of, even for those tickets that might not be super expensive in cash, there is a reduction in the pain in the ass factor if you're using miles, it seems.
For sure.
So Matthew, since you're wearing Emirates pajamas, Bill has a question. What is a sweet spot for Emirates where we can redeem miles on their new first class seat? Obviously not today, but.
Right. I mean, unfortunately, Emirates is still running this first class on so few planes. I think, Ben, you and I both did it to Brussels, right?
Correct, yep.
And correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I'm not so good from memory. It's been a few months now, but it was like 75,000 miles.
Something like
Jordan,
that.
Somewhere around there. And with no fees now, I mean, that represents an excellent value. Even though it's only blocked at 7 hours and it'll only take about 6 hours in the air, it's still a good way to feel it. And
right, and that's like 5 hours and 50 minutes of time with the binoculars. So, it's a...
I guess let's see when the new first is flying again, even, because they're resuming some number of 777 flights. I mean, it's an amazing deal to go from Newark to Athens on the 777 for 135 round trip or 85 one way, but that's the old first class, which is still pretty good. Same for the A380 New York Milan, but and without the fees, it's great because they literally before charge New York Dubai $1,700 in fees, which I mean is outrageous. So
right, and I would say, I know this is controversial, but I actually really like the 777 first, even the old one. Like you missed out on the shower, which right now you're missing out on the shower anyway because we're not doing that. But it's like the finishes were done more recently, so you have the stars. It's beautiful and a little bit less bling-tastic. Like it's actually beautiful as opposed to. We put a lot of faux wood and gold plate on this and decided it was nice.
Emirates is all about the faux wood and gold, and
I know.
If it's not, that's the fun. If it weren't obnoxious, it wouldn't be Emirates. Like fly a different airline if you don't want in your face obnoxiousness. But that's the fun of it. That's just But I mean, it's not even as exciting. This is the problem. It's the same thing I think even as going to restaurants soon, and it's kind of why I'm not necessarily that much looking forward to the flying aspect of travel as much as destinations. Is that, in a way they say a luxury once sampled becomes a necessity. Like if you've experienced Emirates in the good times, if you've flown the A380 and you got the shower and you got the amazing, dine on demand where each course comes separately, like now when you go back, the service is going to be watered down for some amount of time. And it's just going to be, for anybody who's done it before, disappointing by comparison. Of course, hopefully we're grateful and appreciative if we can fly again, but it's not going to quite be the same thing for quite a while. And, so for me, I'm almost more excited to keep the memory for now than to try to repeat it because I know the flying process itself. Yeah.
And or like going in, like with Emirates is a great example, going in with that perspective of like, oh, well, I've done the A380. I've only done the A380. So let me do the old 777. Like it's a smaller cabin, so it feels more intimate. So maybe all of those service changes don't feel like a downgrade. It just feels like, oh, it's a different plane. So of course it's different. And maybe that it's less jarring.
Well, I guess the new world of luxury is simply space. Privacy and space are the new luxury. So forget, I guess, put the services on board. If you can close your suite door and, not have someone cough in your face, I think that's a win at this point, right? So I think that's where we're at. So, yeah. Can I ask generally so what for both of you, what was your last trip that you want to share? How are you looking towards future travel, and what airline or product are you most excited to fly again or for the first time at some point?
I'll go first. just before everything closed up, I spent a week in Africa in March. It was a lot of fun. I haven't written about the trip yet, but I started in South Africa. Wanted to fly South African Airways on the A330, which is apparently going to be a very useless review once I publish it. RIP or not, we'll see.
Or not.
And then, you know what really, really distresses me? See, I was in Accra for 2 days, and I didn't know that Sean M. was there. We were chatting on your show the first time, and that was like the biggest missed opportunity in the world. I'm so bummed about that.
But that is a huge missed opportunity.
I had a wonderful time. Ghana is highly recommended. Go see it. I also went to Togo and Benin on the same trip, did a little Stefan, and then back through London. So that was my last trip. Honestly, since I'm going to miss out on the Air France A380, since they're retiring that, the only other A380 I haven't flown is Korean Air, so that tops my list. I've still got Korean miles. I want to do a redemption, see what their first class is like post-COVID, do the 747-8 plus the A380. So Taipei probably.
Cool.
Yeah, we can have a whole conversation about redeeming Korean miles, because I think a lot of us are.
Yeah, I have questions
but
there.
Jordan, we should give you the opportunity to talk about.
You don't do Korean redemptions at Award Expert, just say it.
My last big trip was Myanmar in January, and I actually got very sick on my third day there, and was sick for something like 10 days with all of the symptoms of COVID, but I'm not sure if it was COVID. They actually had a pretty severe bird flu outbreak, so it might have just been bird flu, which seems more likely. So I didn't get to see much, and I was there for like 2 weeks.
So you may be best equipped to speak to the post-COVID travel experience. Like, here's what it's going to be. You're going to go, you're going to be in your hotel, you're going to come back and be like, that was expensive.
Yeah, you're going to call a doctor to the Hilton to do like a welfare check on yourself, make sure you're not actually dying. That was my experience. But yeah, so I want to get back to Myanmar. But as far as products, I think Japan Airlines first class or ANA first class, like the new one. I've never done either of the Japanese carriers in first, so I think that would be really fun and really cool. Either with Alaska Miles or if Virgin Atlantic is still around.
Yeah, so that's actually a question somebody has. Maybe we should talk about that. Like, thoughts on transferring to Virgin Atlantic at this point? We haven't answered the Virgin Atlantic question for like 3 weeks then.
Since last time, but it's the first time this week. We're good.
How would you guys feel like transferring to Virgin, booking that ticket on ANA, either for like, I know it, and what's the difference between like, I'd book that for myself, but would you book it for a client? Like, how do we feel?
I wouldn't do it. I might feel more comfortable like transferring and booking Delta, just because I kind of have faith in Delta to like do the right thing. If Virgin, goes under and you've got this ticket, maybe they'd somehow take control of it, but ANA probably not. So I wouldn't transfer to Virgin right now.
So, I mean, I tend to agree with you, but I'll lay the option out, especially if they're really keen to try a product. The space is there. We just did this last week for a client, a solo traveler, and they wanted to save miles. I explained to them the risks, and they said book anyway, but we won't push booking ANA on Virgin, even though it's an incredible deal. And I think you're right, Jordan. I think the Delta deals are exceptionally great as well, and if something happens to Virgin Atlantic, I tend to think that Virgin Atlantic will survive, but if something happens, Delta's probably going to honor the tickets, probably being the key word.
So how are we feeling? Okay, sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm looking at the questions, but if you have general, keep the conversation going.
I have a question, which I think some people sort of hit on as well, because I was one of those people who transferred miles from Chase Ultimate Rewards to Korean Air SkyPass when, when that seemed like a good idea.
Yeah.
SkyPass is a valuable program, and now they have that. So I have several 100,000 Korean Air SkyPass miles, but now they're devaluing the program. It's weird. Wasn't it as of April 2020, but there's like a 1 year
grace period. Yeah.
Grace period. I don't know what exactly that means in the context of Korean Air, because
It feels
SkyPass.
very Alitalia, is what it feels like to me. Like, do you guys remember in like 2014ish where like there were different prices on Alitalia? Like if you went to the Russian version of the chart versus the Italian version, it feels like that. Like there's a devaluation, but maybe not for you, maybe not today.
I mean, there's a lot of things about Korean Air SkyPass that are confusing and frustrating. Not the least of which is when you do you can only redeem for family members. So if you were gay and trying to add your husband as a family member, that is a very exciting process. Let me tell you, they're like, I think there's a mistake. So anyway, we'll save that for a different time. Or if you're trying to use the bathroom in the Korean Air Lounge JFK, that's also a problem. Anyway, so how are you feeling, Matthew? You have Korean Air SkyPass miles, and
I do, although I only transferred enough for one first-class trip. And
at the old rates or the new rates?
At the old rates. And so
you can use it till 2021, is your understanding, based on travel or
based on booking?
So we have time.
I do believe we have time, but like you said, you never know. And see,
read it. I have to double check.
I'm looking to book as soon as possible. I want Atlanta, Seoul, Taipei, pretty easy routing, but it's still, I don't know when to pull the trigger because who knows when it's going to open.
Why Atlanta?
747-8, and I don't want, a repeat of Ben's experience at the JFK Lounge.
Right. But you do live in Los Angeles. I just feel like sometimes it's worth pointing this out.
A double daily A380 service with twice as many seats in first class and less privacy. No thank you.
None of which are usually full because the market for first class on Korean Air is very limited. I do love I do love their salad buffet in first class and how deliberately they place each one because it has like a bowl with like 12 tomatoes, but they just take out one and they put it on your salad. It's like 2 carrot things on your salad. It's very nicely done.
And do you think that's going to stick around? I mean, is Lufthansa going to keep the caviar service? Is Korean going to do the salad bar? Who knows?
And that's a good question, right? So, I mean, Emirates is cutting back in a way, the way they're doing service at least. So does a lot of that tray or the trolley-based service change? Even in business class, especially some of the, whether it's Royal Air Morocco or whatever, they love bringing out those trolleys with all the different desserts and stuff to look at. I mean, presumably that's all going to change. So, I don't know. I feel like that's, I'm just most sad about the lack of a shower. Though I'm not really sure I understand why the showers are being eliminated from the first class service because I'm not exactly sure of the risk there.
I think it's because they can.
Right.
Like I was thinking about that because we were, in Morocco as this was all unfolding. And on the one hand, there's some questionable things happening in the Medinas of Morocco, right? Like we understand there's questionable things. But on the other hand, like they're super clean because you've got like all the shopkeepers are washing things down every morning. Like you go to the hammam, like everything is just soap everywhere. And then like you walk by and there's like a lamb's head that's been sitting out in the sun all day and maybe that's iffy. But like the shower, it's like a shower, there's soap. I don't get it. It seems like just a way to reduce the number of staff needed.
No, well, that's, I think,
anyway, so we promised to talk about redeeming miles. So what is the best way to get to India using Chase Ultimate Rewards points? Assuming that like flights are actually going to any of these places. Like let's just pretend that there's planes going. Or given the current situation, what are the options?
Now with the reduced surcharges on Emirates, that might be a good option.
You said, yeah.
I mean, just because they've got a decent amount of availability from a lot of cities in the U.S.
And I think it's also better if you're trying to go somewhere other than just like Mumbai and New Delhi, right? Because Emirates has they've got a bigger route network in India.
Yeah.
I mean,
this question
could sometimes be an option for Starlines.
Sorry, Matthew, I think it cut out for a second.
No, I said, then the question is, are you willing to fly Air India? And if so, that may open up some additional options with United, but, buyer beware, right? We've all heard the horror stories. That's the last Star Alliance carrier I haven't flown, and I look forward to that day, sort of.
Wait, I thought you haven't done, no.
I have not done Air India.
Oh my God. Well, I did enough for both of us. Okay, so having flown London to Delhi to San Francisco on one Life Miles ticket all the way through.
That was amazing. Yes, good
I mean,
use
it's a
of
great
life.
deal in terms of the amount you could fly, but like incremental flying in Air India is not really much to get excited about. In Delhi to San Francisco, like without Wi-Fi and with just everything that happens on Air India, was a long flight. So that's.
No, I mean, I do it from Delhi to Mumbai or something. I mean, that's long enough.
You have to experience their first class service, though. It's exquisite. Oh.
I love how it's like, for people who don't know what we're talking about, Ben has reviews from Air India and like his in-between Air India-ness and the amazing lounge in Heathrow, which you enjoyed so much.
There were some animals there maybe, but the Delhi lounge, the ground experience in Delhi was phenomenal because, usually, in my opinion, transiting India, whether it's Delhi or Mumbai, like the airports are terrible between. Oh, they stopped doing that stupid stamping thing, which is nice because they used to like require your boarding pass be stamped. So even though you could get like a mobile boarding pass, whatever, they're like, no, we need this one with this certificate with this. And it's just like, ugh. And then
that's very common, and I don't understand why. We had the same problem leaving Laos. They were like, oh, you have to have a paper boarding pass. I'm like, why? Like, we're checked in online. There's a mobile boarding pass. The airline is fine with mobile boarding pass, but like passport control wanted a paper boarding pass. Why is that? And Matthew, was that just an indicator that I was supposed to be offering a bribe?
Not necessarily. I mean, I had the same experience actually in Laos, but because I flew Thai back, and no mobile boarding pass was accepted, but no bribe in that situation. It's not like
Right.
you're flying through Laos.
Yeah. Let's see. Somebody has thoughts on Life Miles redemptions right now, like especially on Star Alliance partners. I assume a lot of people have a lot of Life Miles.
And if you have them,
I think they'll survive. I think it's too much of a cash cow, and they'll restructure. Life Miles are going to remain valid. I don't recommend buying any now, but you go right ahead, especially if you have them. Make your bookings. Don't hold back.
I respect, by the way, the fact that Life Miles is actually not trying to sell miles at the moment with some great promo, because I could totally see other programs, the airline files for Chapter 11, like 200% bonus. But like they've actually held back throughout this for the past couple of months. So, I think kudos to them in a way for not trying to lure people into buying miles. If you have them, redeem them, because that's better than not redeeming them. But they haven't devalued in a while. Like they actually have. I have to give the people. See, I think a lot of airlines are missing big opportunities by the way, is that a Finnair glass, Matthew?
It is, yes.
I was thinking that. Okay, did you perhaps borrow it from the plane, or?
Of course not.
Oh my goodness! And you have a glass. How much did you take off that plane?
I didn't take it from the plane.
Well, it's Mary Mako, so you can buy it, right? Like it's a.
No comment on the lounge back there.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you
But
buy
the
this
Platinum
online?
is very beautiful. One of the nicest business class lounges in the world. Wouldn't you agree?
The Platinum, the new one?
Yes.
Yes, it is a great lounge.
Because I remember from your review, you missed the a la carte dining. I got to experience it, and it was very, very good.
Really?
I can't wait to get back.
It is a great lounge. Hopefully it stays open or opens again.
Turn this, I guess.
And they even have complimentary glasses to go. So I mean, that's even better.
Okay.
I hope we've all been there.
Another miles thing. So best value business class redemption from Toronto, or I guess another East Coast city, to Bangkok, assuming it's in time when you can actually get to Thailand. Jordan, you go to Thailand all the time, although I guess now you go there from Spain. But
yeah, but from the U.S., the best, I guess, round trip redemption. Any points or miles, just best redemption.
yeah, well, this is always hard for me because people are like, what's the best value? I'm like, I don't know. Like, when are you going? What miles do you have? I have like 19 questions before I can tell you what best is in this case. So I guess, John, if you want to give us more details, we're happy to give you a more specific answer. But broadly, what would you say if someone was like, I just really want to go to Thailand? What miles should I be accruing?
probably Amex points, just because the number of transport partners they have. One cool thing you can do is fly ANA, like an open jaw, and you can book that via Virgin Atlantic. Do something like New York, Tokyo, Bangkok.
I love it. This is like 5 minutes after you're like, don't transfer points to Virgin Atlantic to fly ANA.
That's true. Yeah, so I guess Aeroplan's probably if you can do like a carrier with low surcharges, I think that's probably the lowest mileage rate. China Airlines via Taipei is another good option with Delta SkyMiles.
American in Alaska too.
American, or if you have Korean miles, like Matthew and Ben.
Yeah, you could do, John, I'm assuming if you're in Canada, you have Canadian options for miles. So you probably have Aeroplan miles and maybe American miles. So if you have American miles, then Cathay Pacific's a great option. Or JAL, but schedule-wise, that's sometimes complicated.
Yeah, or EVA via Taipei. I think the Toronto-Taipei route usually has pretty good award space.
It does.
So realistically, you'd have your pick of dates. Yeah.
I'm just going to keep jumping around and doing these because these are fun. Recommendations for using Turkish miles and or Amex points, I'm going to assume US Amex points, to Bangladesh or Nepal. Oh, no, wait, they're UK based, so UK Amex points. So Bangladesh or Nepal from Europe.
Well, if you have points, I would say London to Istanbul to Kathmandu is probably your most straightforward option. Good product, and you'll pay a surcharge, high taxes, but relatively good expenditure in miles.
You wouldn't recommend enjoying the Biman Bangladesh experience you had?
I would. In fact, that's something we could do together. Try the new Dreamliner. Yeah.
I'm sure they won't have any problem with their picture taking between the two of us.
Yeah.
If we made it on Uzbekistan Airlines with pictures, we can make it anywhere.
Yeah.
Highly recommended.
Something more aspirational, maybe. Bora Bora. I know all of our favorite thing when we have someone who wants to go to Bora Bora using their miles and points. It's significantly better than it used to be because inevitably, once upon a time, it was always someone with United miles wanting to go to Bora Bora when you couldn't really get there. You couldn't get to Tahiti at all with Star Alliance unless you went to via Auckland, and of course there's no award space to Auckland either, so it was just terrible. So given the current situation, if somebody wanted to go to Tahiti, they're in Los Angeles. They've got 200,000 membership rewards points. What would they look at?
I'd look at Air France, see if there's availability on their nonstop, try to find a date that works, encourage them to stockpile American miles if they're thinking about a future trip to Tahiti.
Or just book, I know it's not ideal, or just book a cheap, because I agree, because Air Tahiti Nui is the best option in terms of award availability, and that can really only be booked with American miles. So otherwise you have Air France, but they're really stingy with award availability. So I think the other option I would personally consider, if Air Tahiti Nui wasn't an option, I would maybe book, French B or French Blue in their premium economy. So it's not nice, but it's cheap, and it's better than economy if you're willing to do it. And also, this person, I believe, was saying, and which Marriott property as a Bonvoy Gold member, right? Was that the same question?
Yeah.
Okay. I have strong opinions about this. So I think the St. Regis is not very nice, personally. It should be much nicer. It's really run down. Maybe that's not the case anymore. Anyway, if you have a way of getting Hilton points, I would do that and stay at the Conrad Bora Bora. It's much better value on points. And if you get the Hilton Aspire, you get Hilton Diamond status, which is top tier status, which actually gets you free breakfast and other perks, which Gold with Bonvoy doesn't necessarily. So anyway,
yeah.
Conrad is very impressive.
Yeah, and I'm sorry for you, David, that you're a Bonvoy Gold. maybe sort of, I guess, unless you're getting it from a credit card via the Amex. Sort of following up on this though, like the Air Tahiti Nui, Jordan, you were recently trying to book Air Tahiti Nui with Delta, right? Was that
right?
Relatively recently?
I can't remember. I think it was last summer where there was space on Air Tahiti Nui, but Delta Sky Miles, for whatever reason, cannot book Air Tahiti flights. And then there's some workaround, but I couldn't get it to work, where you can get Delta to open up space on Air France to reaccommodate you.
Are they still partners, Air Tahiti Nui and Delta?
They are.
Oh my God, my brain, I swear I'm getting old, because you also used to be able to redeem Delta Sky Miles for like Singapore Airlines first class and even for Emirates first class. Imagine, sorry.
Yeah, so it is technically possible. The problem is it's a little bit like, you know how it used to be booking Malaysia flights through Advantage, where you needed, there's a shibboleth basically in order to get anything booked. You had to know like the exact right things to say to the exact right person and walk them through, and that's sort of the situation there. So I wouldn't really recommend that unless you already have a ton of Sky Miles and are willing to experiment, but I wouldn't transfer points to Delta in anticipation of it being able to work out.
Yeah, I don't think it's actually possible, because even the people who have had success with it, the only way they've had success is getting Delta to open up space on Air France instead. Like, there's just no way to book Air Tahiti with Sky Miles.
Okay, the person who is asking Applejacks about thoughts on Singapore miles, what would you like to know about Singapore miles? Like, we could totally answer if you. I don't think otherwise, like general, like, yes, they're good, especially for Singapore. So somebody has Tom, he's got 400,000 Chase Ultimate Rewards miles. Is there an amazing transfer deal at the moment that you would recommend?
No.
I'm asking this just Ben, so you can explain, or Matthew, either of you, anybody, why you should.
I mean, you should always keep Chase transferable points in the transferable program unless you have a specific reason to transfer them, because a lot of the value that comes from them comes from the fact that you have so much flexibility. We have not seen many, sometimes we see great transfer bonuses. We haven't seen those lately. I guess we have not seen these probably because programs think it would be kind of maybe insensitive or something. I mean, this hasn't been really a time to promote travel necessarily, so they're not like, hey, transfer your points to Virgin Atlantic with this 30% bonus, even though, maybe you shouldn't be traveling, and maybe they're, near bankruptcy, whatever. So we've not seen those lately, which in a way is a shame, because for anyone looking to plan travel way in the future, I have been tempted to transfer points to Emirates Skywards because of these great deals because of the changes they just made, but we haven't seen a transfer bonus, and we probably won't for a while. So keep them there unless you have a reason, and there's no transfer bonus right now, so there's especially not a reason right now.
But we're seeing increasingly that it just makes more and more sense in many cases to redeem right through the Ultimate Rewards portal. Especially if you have the Chase Sapphire Reserve, you're getting 1.5 with discounted business class tickets. Often those Chase points, and we never thought this was possible a few years ago, right? But everything's changed, and with cheap business class tickets, it often just makes sense to redeem directly through Chase. You earn miles on the ticket, you earn status miles. It's making more and more sense.
Right. The negatives, though, are it's booked through Expedia. And so if you have to cancel that ticket, now you have an extra layer. Like, it's not just dealing with the airline. There's also now this OTA of Expedia, and there's also Chase. So if you are a person who is risk adverse in that way.
Or just adverse to dealing with complete incompetence on so many levels. I mean, that's, I think usually Matthew's absolutely right that it's gotten to the point where often premium deals are so good that that's a better value. But like right now, I would avoid that if at all possible, because even if you book, even if your flights aren't, or your trip isn't canceled, it's highly likely we're going to see major schedule changes across the board from airlines. And when that's the case, like dealing with Expedia to rebook, or whatever it is not going to be a fun experience. So it's definitely the best value in many cases, but the pain in the ass factor right now is pretty high. So,
which some people are not at all concerned about. It sort of depends. But it's like, I think it's it's a new interesting wrinkle, like something we would never have really thought to worry about. We wouldn't have thought this was the best value, but here we are. And now there's but there's this asterisk next to it. More chipper thoughts. Drew is looking to fly in a 747. I hope that you've done that ever before, Drew, and this isn't like your last gasp of trying to do it. In first or a good business class, long haul, eventually. Currently has plenty of American points, but doesn't think that helps him any.
That's true. It doesn't, unfortunately.
It doesn't.
No, I mean, if you need to pay the fuel surcharge, though, the 747 that BA runs, people love to rag on BA. I think their business class product has improved quite a bit. It's not a great seat. No argument there. But, I like the service. Now, that may all be going to where after
Is there a big
Willie
change
this latest move
for British Airways business class to British Airways COVID service? Like, it's still, you get some surly person trying to fulfill your boarding school fantasies by throwing trays at you. Like, what are they going to change?
Has that been your experience? Because I've flown BA quite a bit now over the years, and I have yet to have a bad long haul flight. And it's just been one decent to great experience after another.
I've only done British Airways business class once, actually, and it was out of San Diego, and it was perfectly acceptable. Like, I had the good seat in the back that you want to have, where you're not climbing over someone, and it was fine. I liked that I could leave my house 20 minutes before departure for an international flight, so the novelty of that didn't really wear off.
I agree. They've improved a lot. I think forget COVID. When you have Alex Cruz and Willie Walsh, I'm willing to bet the amount of cost cutting that they're suddenly going to do to undo their billions of pounds of investments is a guarantee. Not to mention, understandably, flight attendants should be pissed as hell because unless it's their mixed fleet flight attendants who are already getting what they call poverty pay, like the fact that their senior polished flight attendants are largely getting 50+% pay cuts is quite outrageous. I can't imagine they're going to be very happy if they choose to go back to work with this. I love their PR people emailed me and were like, this is these are competitive rates. I'm like, compared to what? EasyJet? Like what?
They're competitive rates compared to Nando's, which is what they're comparing to. It's like
exactly, and I'm like, so that's going to be great first class service.
Yeah. Okay, but who still has a 747 with first other than BA that you can get
Lufthansa?
With Lufthansa, but like that
with American miles?
Well, it doesn't have to be American miles. Like, Drew, I'm sure that if we were like, okay, like you should do this, you should aim for Lufthansa, like you need to get yourself, if you have some
China.
Right. If you have some membership rewards points, you could always do Lufthansa through Aeroplan or Life Miles, but Life Miles is annoying because the space isn't always there, and Aeroplan has the very hefty fuel surcharges. But if you can get some Ultimate Rewards cards quick and then spend a lot of points via United.
Are there actually any other airlines? I'm just thinking, because so many airlines have retired 747s. Are there any other airlines with first class on the 747? British Airways, Lufthansa, Korean Air, Air China,
Thai Airways.
Thai Airways.
Is that it?
And the Thai 747 first is lovely.
It is.
It is lovely. It's lovely.
It's just everything about it is just lovely. It's not on a lot of routes though. It's mostly just to Hong Kong now, right?
And I'd be shocked if they didn't retire it after this whole. Or actually, I would be shocked if they did retire because the government will keep, oh no, I don't know what's going on, and then yeah. Oh, I have a question. Do you guys think? How are you feeling about the future of frequent flyer programs? Should we worried big devaluation? Should we be excited because airlines are in trouble and things are going to get better? What's your prediction for the future of redemptions?
I'd say short term, things look really good. I think there's going to be a lot of seats to fill, and they're going to turn to loyalty programs to fill those seats. So if you've got miles and points right now, as the COVID situation improves, you'll be in a good spot to, book either aspirational awards or awards on the dates you want to travel. But long term, who knows? It's anyone's guess, really.
I would agree with that. I mean, certainly as airlines bring back schedules, it's going to be great for a while, but who knows? I mean, there's going to be a whole new norm, and prices are going to go up, I suspect, so we'll have to see.
Yeah, and just the fact that United, raised all of their prices in the middle of a COVID pandemic, I don't know, makes me think American and Delta will have no problem doing it in the future either. But at least there are a lot of international programs you can turn to still get outsized value out of your transferable points.
Speaking of transferable points, kind of open-ended, but if you had 70,000 thank you points and were looking to close your account and so needed to transfer the points out, what would you pick? What program?
I would pick Turkish because I found those Turkish points so useful for domestic United awards. It's easier than ever, in my experience, to book the awards. It used to be virtually impossible. Now you pick up the phone. Maybe the agent won't be able to find the space, but usually they can. And it's just thinking about, you can go from the East Coast to Hawaii for 7,500 miles each way in economy class, or 12,500 in business if you find the space. It's just incredible value.
Yeah, I'd say Turkish is a good option. And even upgrades on Turkish flights, too, are really cheap, something like 25,000 miles to upgrade from. I don't know if you can do it on the cheapest economy tickets, but from economy to business is really good value.
Matthew, I just noticed the airplane models up there at the top. Is that Lufthansa?
It is. We've got the whole
livery?
Now, these belong to my business partner, but there is an A330, an A340, 747-8, and the A380.
All Lufthansa. So is it two old livery, two new?
Yeah, it's two new livery, the retro livery on the 747 and the old on the A380.
Very nice. Okay, there you go. That's good.
I introduced him to Lufthansa first class, and now he flies it much more than I do.
He's addicted to it, huh? Yeah. As one is. Lufthansa's. But without the first class terminal, let's see what happens to Caviar.
Right. Any good deals that you guys would be waiting for redeeming Singapore miles, or how would you use them if you had them already? Ben, you said their new first sort of felt like going to the dentist. Was it their new first or their new business?
Yeah, their new first. Yeah, I mean, so that's nice. The problem is the lack of availability unless you're going to fly from Shanghai to Singapore. Actually, you should take a look. I'm sure maybe in the meantime they have some JFK Singapore space in the old suites, which are perfectly nice as well. But best uses, I mean, probably for Singapore Metal, because Singapore is actually good and it's the only program through which you can book it for the most part. They have usually good award availability on the 777s from the West Coast, surprisingly, because they only have 4 first-class seats on those 777s. And at least until a while ago, there were often 2 first-class award seats from LA, so they still have you San Francisco, Hong Kong. So surprisingly, there were seats there, but less so now, obviously. And we'll see what their future route map looks like to the U.S. I mean, they have those A350-900 ULRs that are stored. You can use it for the world's longest flight if that's something you want to get off your bucket list, Newark to Singapore. Not necessarily a flight I personally need to repeat.
Is it still really the longest flight, given that we are having all these repatriation flights, which are like, we're going to strain the ability to carry fuel?
That's true. Longest scheduled. Though I wonder if there has actually been yeah. No, you're right. So longest scheduled one. That's we did get the nonstop Philippine Airlines plane the other day, Manila to Miami. So that was cool to see. And then they continued right away back to LA and then back to Manila, which seems like a very long day. But
were they? Never mind. We're going to talk about redeeming miles. I'm not going to ask follow-up questions about the cruise ships and everything like that.
They were picking up cruise ships.
Okay. I was like, were they picking up cruise? Like, is that what the point of that was?
Yeah.
Best point redemptions, U.S. to Asia, that would allow us stopover along the way.
Alaska. Stopover in Hong Kong or Tokyo or Singapore.
Yeah, so Alaska lets you have a stopover either in the Alaska city, which is a little bit not necessarily useful, but maybe useful for some. Like if you're coming from the East Coast, you could stop over, on the West Coast before continuing on. or in the partner hub city. So you could, yeah, fly JAL and stop over in Tokyo, fly Cathay, stop over in Hong Kong.
If you've got Amex points, you can transfer to Asia Miles, and they still do stopovers on round trips.
Are there any other programs that allow stopovers on one-way awards other than Alaska? This is not a trick question. I'm thinking if I know the answer, it's a... Is that it?
I'm not coming up with anything.
I don't know if Jordan and I are smiling for the same reason, which is like it depends on how you're defining a one-way.
Yeah.
An actual published, what would be a published routing for, yes,
Yeah.
that is a good point.
What is a one-way?
Yeah. What is a one-way really?
Not a one-way from New York to Toronto via, Tokyo, but
No, I think Alaska is the last public stopover on the one-way.
Which, by the way, the lack of innovation from airline loyalty programs is mind-boggling, because in terms of how airlines reimburse one another for these awards, at least the last time I saw, it's on a per-segment basis. So it doesn't actually cost Alaska anything. I totally understand that they think, other airlines think, okay, we could charge more miles, and obviously that would be beneficial, but one would think that would be a real great opportunity to differentiate a program, but only Alaska seems to see it that way. So other programs, if you want to bring back stopovers on one-ways, we'd really appreciate it.
Right, especially right now when people sort of need more flexibility. Yeah.
Correct.
Booking the whole round trip is
What
more
do you think-
complicated.
What do you think the new Air Canada program is going to look like? Are you optimistic, or you think they're just going to delay it? And
Well,
we
you're obviously
won't
not
know
asking
until-
me because I'm not an optimist, and we all know that. So.
Call me delusional, but I think I actually have very high hopes. Not that it's the same thing, for example, as if we talk about loyalty programs. There are things obviously we would do that if you ran a loyalty program that are smart business decisions that aren't necessarily customer friendly, but there are other ways to be innovative. So my expectation, I could be totally wrong, is that I think the value will be really good for members who want to maximize things. I think there's probably going to be some very unique features, because the cool thing about Aeroplan is the people running the program are true airline nerds, which I really like, because for the most part the people running loyalty programs at other airlines have a revenue management background or something else, where
or
frankly
marketing, it's not
yes,
really an aviation.
they're not actually good at engaging people. So I am very excited. Perhaps I'm naive, but I do think I think there will at least be some cool elements to the program that might pleasantly surprise us. I don't have any inside info, but that's my guess. So you heard it here. Let's see how it goes. But for example, I'm very impressed by the fact, what they've been doing up until now during this, the ability to earn status from home. That's a really cool opportunity. It costs them almost nothing. It's very smart. They've just gotten into the business of selling miles in a lucrative way. That has been, in my opinion, such a missed opportunity till now, because really the arbitrage opportunities for the way that airlines reimburse one another, it makes perfect sense that they can make profits while booking people on partner airlines. Why is Life Miles the only program in Star Alliance that has been smart enough to realize, hey, there's a really good business model to selling miles really cheap and still making money?
Well, U.S. Airways made enough money off of that they could buy American. So, it's a proven model.
It's basically true. And I think, based on the direction they're headed, I have hope. It will probably just take a while, because I was supposed to launch this summer, and I think it's now delayed till, what are they saying, later this year? So
I would delay, just because it's going to be stressful.
Have they put a date in place for the new Aeroplan program?
No.
I just heard late.
Yeah, later. We're busy.
But it is the only program I'm actually excited
Which again
about.
is sort of nice, because I think if it were Matthew, to your earlier point, just United and being United, if United were planning to launch a new program right now, they just would, right? There would be no, we're delaying because of a pandemic. They're just what? But
United left no
surely
good
you have other things to be mad about, so this seems fine.
I wonder, with these latest evaluations, do they just figure, heck, we've got nothing to lose at this point, let's just stick it to them? Maybe, because now if things are calm for the next 4 or 5 months, things pick up, people have short memories, they'll forget. I guess that's their point. Maybe there's some logic to it, sadly.
I think you're giving them a lot of credit if you think there's any logic to it. This is...
But I do. I think that Matthew's right. It's just we're already getting bad press. It's not like our share price is going to go down if we have a devaluation. Like no one's going to be complaining about the award chart when there's, actual things happening in the world. So, and no one's flying, so I guess whatever. I guess some people are flying. George is flying, as he likes to remind us in every post. Amir is wondering, what's the best points way to fly Qatar business class, like the US to Nairobi?
American miles.
American, 75,
Yeah, without question. And that's pretty easy. And what about, what about for people where it's hard to get American miles? Because like on the one hand, it's easy to get multiple Advantage cards, but it's not like they have any real lucrative transfer partners otherwise. I mean, you could, if you have sitting on a lot of Bonvoy points, but it's not like that transfer ratio is, the earn rate isn't very good anymore, so that makes it complicated. Is there a second pick for the non-Advantage folks?
Asian miles, but the surcharges when you originate in the US are close to $800, I think, $700 maybe.
I have a question along those lines. First of all all my questions are serious, and I'm actually thinking about these as I say them. Is American Advantage actually the only one of the big 3 U.S. airline programs that has a best in category value? Because Advantage miles for U.S. to Middle East or U.S. to South Africa are, in my opinion, the best, period, because you can redeem on Qatar or Etihad in some cases. With Delta Sky Miles, I can't think of a single redemption where you're not better off through another program, and the same for United. Am I missing something?
Pretty much.
No, I don't. Yeah.
Yeah. I think where Delta or United come into play, it's like, okay, it's not necessarily the best value, but when you multiply, the value by the availability, then it starts making this like, okay, so then maybe Delta, to Europe specifically, if you're going to the UK, because you have Virgin Atlantic, and that ends up being like, yes, you're paying more potentially, but you can also get to see. And like United to Australia, like if you ask me which of those 3 miles I wanted for Australia, like I don't even care that United's price is more, like you can actually get there. Although that being said, like my past 4 trips to Australia, I've used American miles. Because that it just worked out that way. Or Alaska miles for one of them, for my niece.
Jordan, behind you, is that a run? Someone asked for the gentleman with the lovely painting. Is that jetway lights on a rainy evening?
No, it's an original painting, so it's not a replica of anything. Talking about the painting?
Yes. Yeah. Are those runway lights on a dark evening?
No.
I
can see that.
Don't read too much into it.
Because I see the center line, and I see.
Right. This is what Jordan's been doing in his quarantine. He's like, yes, I've been painting inspirational art from the days when we used to be able to leave the apartment.
I don't think it's it.
Sorry, I'm looking for some more questions. But
this, I mean, just as a general tip, so many people are so afraid to wait until the last minute to book. And, I think once schedules start reopening again, once planes are operating, it's going to be the best opportunity ever to book your dream trip at the last minute. And I would be so confident as to say, you can anticipate that the space will open. You can still plan on your vacation. Even if you don't have flights booked, something is going to open up at the last minute, now more than ever before. So take the plunge, take the risk, it's worth it.
Yeah, so Danielle was asking about this a little bit, and I think this is a perfect follow-on to that. Like, you're saying that there's great opportunities last minute. Like, why is that? What is the benefit for airlines of having award seats at all, much less like filling the plane last minute with award tickets?
I mean, if no one's sitting there, they're not earning anything. So they might as well fill it with whatever marginal revenue they're going to get from a mileage seat, right?
Right, and like Singapore doesn't take that approach generally with partners, right? They'd rather send out the first class cabin empty, or Air France. But for the most part, that's exactly right. And that's why they open up space, because oftentimes it's already, ready to be catered, and everything else stays the same, so it's worth it.
Right. Ben, is it American who caters for every seat in first, even if every seat's not sold? Or what airline is it where,
American
pre-COVID?
Because it's always going to be filled with employees, if nothing else. Like it's almost unheard of that not every seat is taken in American First. So that is
The employees have to eat.
That's how they're right. And then, even if it's fully catered, the crew may enjoy it before you do. Like shrimp, we don't have those, and then you go in the galley and they're like,
yeah,
taking one at a time.
So when you guys do award bookings, what do you do when you have clients who want to use miles to upgrade? What do you tell them if you want to go this route? I think, Matthew, you take a very different approach than we do.
Well, I try to dissuade people from doing that.
Okay, so it's the same approach.
Yeah, I'm happy to help, but generally it just doesn't make sense, especially if there's a wait list. The wait list throws everything into jeopardy, and it's not worth the risk.
Yeah, and it seems to frequently be people with United Miles who want to do this. I don't know why that is, but it seems to be people with United Miles who really want to do this, and it's very, very sad because it doesn't work out. But there are some cases where it makes sense, right? Like not with
Singapore
Mileage Plus, but like
I don't have much experience lately with the new Singapore wait list and how they've changed that. Jordan, have you done that? I mean, I think it's an improved system now, but I don't know how well or how not so well it works.
I don't know with it.
Yeah, I think in general when we would talk about doing it would be if somebody is like willing to buy premium economy on a foreign carrier, like British Airways, doing an upgrade from premium economy to business, or I mean now it's different with Emirates not having fuel surcharges, but especially for people who were doing like a safari, buying business on Emirates and then upgrading to first was better than just paying the fuel surcharges, for a full-on award ticket. So.
Just want to add what Matthew said earlier makes a lot of sense about planning travel last minute, I think. So that's how I'm very much approaching things nowadays. I'm not planning anything really in the future, especially not months out, because who knows how the situation is going to evolve. Who knows how borders are going to open and close. I really think there has never been a better time, as much as it's nice to look forward to something, to just plan at the very last minute. And I know everybody is in a different situation, so some people only have a certain amount of time off, and that's tricky. But I really think, at least in the coming months, we're going to see more award availability than ever before, because planes are largely going to be empty, especially in business and first class, because there's not going to be that much business travel. So I think there's a lot of merit to waiting to the last minute to book. When if borders are going to be open, when you have a full sense of, is it safe to travel to this place? How are they handling situations? For example, I'm still considering Iceland in a couple of weeks, but I'm still not sure one way or another, because we still don't know the details of what they're actually going to do, and they have one of the more well thought out plans of any country, but still no one knows. So
I think a key part of that is actually, and something that we've talked about before, is being destination agnostic. Like this is how Nick and I used to do it when he had really difficult work schedules and PTO. And like we would eventually get to be like, okay, we would know when he could take time off exactly, but not really enough to where like at that point in time there's no award space. So we just like, okay, like we know we're gonna go, we know we're gonna leave on like the 28th or the 29th, and we have to be back by the 7th, and then just wait and see. And it'd be like, okay, it looks like we're going to Jordan, whatever, or it looks like we're going to Thailand. And I think if you take that approach, even if for people who have set schedules, I don't know what set schedules are gonna look like post COVID. Like, what does spring break mean anymore for kids and school schedules? Right? Just take them out of school and figure it out. Or, you're homeschooling from somewhere else. It doesn't really seem like these mandatory Zoom things for elementary schools are.
Well, I think everybody now working from home, you will realize both the pleasure and the torment that we go through, because when you can really travel anytime then, just be prepared to be up all night and whatever else. So congratulations and good luck, because it is a double-edged sword. I think we're all grateful for the flexibility we have, but so that in a way people maybe don't have vacations that are quite as structured as before in terms of I have this week off. You can stretch it a few days by working over certain hours, and so fun times.
I think last question, because somebody had asked us a couple times and I missed it the first time. There's been thoughts about Asiana's business class and their frequent flyer program, which are two very different questions. So what about using ANA via Amex to fly Asiana? Like that's a good option. Is there a better Amex option for flying Asiana?
If you need one way, airplane's still fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
strongly disliked it, right, Tiffany? I mean, I remember you telling me you flew the A380 and thought it was a very bad experience, right?
In business, yeah, I didn't like it. But that was me, and it was a while ago, and I was also with my mother-in-law, and um, it was it was a complicated trip, right? Because you start having a lot of. That was on my last U.S. Airways award, actually, my last U.S.
Oh.
Airways 90K. So it was a while ago. In terms of the Asiana frequent flyer program, but I would say Asiana business class is fine. Like, it's fine. It gets you to where you need to go. It's a little corporate feeling to me, like, but it's serviceable. Like, the seat goes flat. There's no IFE, but that's fine. I mean, there is. It's just super limited, and it gets you to Asia for a good price. That's fine. And then the frequent flyer program, like Matthew, you're a big fan of the Asiana redemption rates. It's just hard to get points there now.
Right. I mean, it was easier with Starwood. I mean, in theory, right, 50,000 points for Lufthansa first class one way, same fuel surcharge as this airplane. It's a very good deal, but just the telephone booking and booking a few days in advance when Lufthansa tends to open up, especially on the West Coast, 24 hours in advance, it makes it very difficult. And so I tend to steer clear of Asiana's loyalty program for that reason.
I mean, there are a lot of amazing niche loyalty programs where there are great sweet spots. The problem is we often tend to overlook the logistics associated with booking. Like, I will pay premium to be able to book through a website that is functional rather than having to call, send in a marriage certificate, whatever else is required depending on the situation. Often it's just not worth the hassle, but it depends on how much you enjoy. Like, I really used to enjoy the thrill of that. Like, there was nothing as exciting as back in the day with Mileage Plus, getting them to, when they did their StarNet blocking, getting them to manually sell the space, and or with US Airways, same thing. But
I actually remember that was, I think, Ben, one of the first awards that you and I booked together, like, forever ago, and you were like, okay, like, let's go through doing this, and having somebody long sell a Lufthansa award on US Airways, and it was literally like the first call, 15 seconds. Like, maybe we were on the call for all of 3 minutes. It was very awkward. You're like, so it's not actually supposed to be that easy. And you were so sad because it was like, yes, it was successfully ticketed, but there was no, like, thrill of the chase. It just was.
It was always thrilling when it was, it took a 20-minute phone call. They really tried, and there was suspense, because if you get an agent right away who's like, nope, that's no fun. If you get an agent who does it right away, that's too easy. Like, you want someone you can really train, where they're, wow, I didn't know I could do this. That's really cool.
Oh, yeah, like SkyMiles agents back in the day, when you would, book something with 8 segments and a stopover, back when that was a thing. And I literally have had agents clap because they were so excited when they saw that it priced out at 80,000 miles. Yeah, it was just like, they were so proud of themselves, and you got to luxuriate in that.
Cool. Well, this has been very fun. Thank you, Matthew and Jordan, for joining us. We really appreciate it. And thanks to everyone who tuned in. And hopefully we can all redeem miles again soon. And if there's any good sweet spots on a fun airline, let's plan something. If airlines are still flying to fun places. For example, Czech Airlines, they have that cool Prague to Incheon flight for like 25,000 Etihad miles, but apparently they're now, like, permanently they're returning the plane because of everything going on. So there goes the sweet spot. But anyway, sorry, that was a tangent. But thank you guys for joining us.
Yeah,
thank you everybody.
Good night, guys.
For brunch on Sunday, we might do let's do some booking of awards for things that you guys have. If you have questions and things like that, we'll see how that goes from a technological perspective. But if you're thinking of something, like, maybe think about it, and we can help you get with that live. So thank you.
Thank you, guys.